Welcome back to Between Two Racks with the Kilo Crew. On today's episode, we're going to talk training splits. That's all we've got. We'll see where it goes. So we'll start off the discussion by just talking about our favorite ones. That'll be an easy way to get going. So personally, Steph, this will continue to make me your personal favorite client to train. My favorite training split is the traditional upper, lower, upper, lower. I love that. The other one that I did have fun doing once was when you had me do 3 lowers, but it was just Monday, lower 1, then I had upper 1, lower 2, upper 2, lower 3. That was fun. I like that one. Your favorite?
It's hard because it kind of depends what the but it might cut it's drastically.
Keep going.
It really depends on what the outcome is. So overall, I would say that upper 1, lower 1, upper 2, lower 2 is probably my favorite, and I'm sure for you guys watching, it's no big surprise. But I'm torn because it's my favorite in terms of results, but it's not my favorite in terms of doing. And what I mean by this is my entire life since I started lifting, I hate lower body.
So you just want to do upper? I do upper 1, 2, 3, 4.
I just hate it. Never liked it. It's a struggle. Just don't like it. So when in my 20s, the split I did the most, and it's funny because we just looked at my old programs with Poric this morning, and clearly the split I did the most in my 20s was a 4-day split where it was chest and back, lower body, then I had shoulders and abs, and then I had arms, bis and tris. And then it was these 4 days in a week, or sometimes I had 4 days on, 1 off, and then I would repeat. Sometimes I had 4 days on, 2 off, and I would repeat. Sometimes it was 2 on, 1 off, 2 on, 2 off. It switched a little bit, but that was pretty much the split. So I liked it because I did legs once. I did upper 3 times. But like I told Poric, what was interesting is in my 20s when I did that split, I had a good physique, looked good, but I was 185-ish, but I was not very strong. So it's only when I really started doing consistently upper 1, lower 1, upper 2, lower 2, that my strength really skyrocketed. And ironically, my body weight, I also put on about 25 pounds of muscle in like a 2-year span by just switching to that upper lower split. So in terms of results, there's no denying it that I have better success with upper lower. But in terms of loving my training week,
no lower.
Sorry guys, I just don't know.
So I'm a little like Steph. I have 2 favorites. Currently, my favorite is the 14-day microcycle. So it's upper 1, lower 1, off, upper 2, lower 2, off, upper 3, lower 3, off, upper 4, lower 4, off, repeat. But I'm loving that at the minute for the variation, and it's not such a beatdown of constantly doing the same movement patterns, constantly trying to beat the number from last week and grind that out. So I feel great doing it. I've got good results doing it. But if you told me to get as strong as possible, it'd be upper 1, lower 1, upper 2, lower 2. Definitely. More saturation, more repeat of the same movement patterns can really overload things a lot more, be a lot more consistent with progressive overload from week to week. So it very much depends on where I am with my goals. So since my goals right now are more just an overall strength building phase, moving into power, I'm loving the 14-day. If I really buckle down, say I want to pick a squat or pick my bench press, I'd move back to upper 1, or the upper lower split.
I'm like you. I think my favorite was what we did in primate. So it was like the 4 different motor patterns for the upper body, and then all the different variations for the lower body. I think it felt good just because I needed that variation, so it doesn't overload the same thing. My body felt good. Yeah, I like doing upper lower split. I actually like doing full body once in a while too. I mean, it hasn't happened in a long time, but back in the day, I used to like doing some full body stuff too. Yeah.
Didn't you love in 2000 when you did upper, lower, upper, lower, upper, lower, off, and it was all 50 reps on everything?
Yeah, no.
No, it was like straight out of
Yeah, who was it? Is it?
Serious Bodybuilding by Tudor Bumpa or something like that.
Yeah, no, I didn't like that. I remember being in the gym though, like I was training in a commercial gym. So I'd set up and it was like 10 exercises in a row, and it was 50 reps for each one. And then like someone, like, you know, 2 people would, like, we'd show up at the same piece of equipment or something. And they're like, oh, you can go first. And I'm like, you sure about that? I'm doing 50 reps. But it was brutal though. It was kind of stupid because like the first 25 reps don't feel like anything. Like in order to get choose the right
reps,
weight to be able to get to 50, like kind of, I didn't do that long, did I?
No, one phase.
Yeah. It's like trying to do the 250 meters worth of lunges. Remember that?
Yeah.
I did some crazy stuff. I was like 250 meters. So there was a track at the gym. And then my trainer at that time, he's like, okay, you're going to do a full, that's one set, do a full round. And I was like, whoa. I'm like, I wonder how much I can do, like, weight-wise. I'm like, 15 pounds seems good. After like 100 meters, I ditched the weights. I did one round, like one, and then that was it. And then I was
I think you do have a lot of PTSD from all the stuff you did back in the day.
I tried everything. I was sore for like 2 weeks.
You made all the mistakes, so no one else has to.
Exactly. So when people tell me stuff, I'm like, yeah, you know, it's not worth trying. I can tell you.
But in those days, like we at that gym, we did so many, like talking about trying stuff.
Yeah.
Like, do you remember when I did, it was a giant set, like a leg giant set where it was front squat to back squat to barbell axe squat to leg press to axe squat machine. And then I would walk up the stairs because that track was on the second floor was around the tennis court. Mm-hmm. And then I would sprint the entire 250 meters as a finisher to my giant set. Would walk back down, rest 4 minutes, do it again.
Sprint being the key word there.
Yeah.
In my head, it was fast, but I don't know.
Well, compared to all the old people who were walking the track, you probably felt like you were sprinting.
Yeah.
I think for me, the upper and lower, I mean, because you've used some fun, like hypertrophy splits with me in the past, and I do feel that they're fun, but I don't overall, for consistency, I don't like those type of splits. I just like knowing, okay, I have upper on Monday, lower on Tuesday. Like, I thrive on that, I find. But the more bodybuilding type splits can be fun, and I think a lot of people are more drawn to those, but sometimes I think they're just more drawn to them because they're bodybuilding bro splits type of thing.
I mean, they're easy as hell. Like compared to the grind of upper lower, it's
okay. So that's why I think they're fun.
Because the arm day is like relatively like easy compared to all the other days, which I would definitely skip the arm days. Every time I've done that split, I'm like, I'm good.
But it also, you know, it's fun for people in the sense that you have more room for different variations of exercises.
Yeah.
Like, for example, because in our typical setup, we have bis and tris in isolation in the C series of upper one, and not even always. So we're talking about one exercise for tri, one exercise for bi. So if that's all I have, it's not like I'm going to do like a Comerford curl and Hobrow curl and all these type of like random curl, because There's not enough exposures to warrant the use of this. But when you have a arm-only day every week for 52 weeks out of the year, then you're going to try a bunch of different things. You're going to try the fulcrum bar. You're going to, there's so much things you can play with.
Remember the 1 day arm cure? Is it?
Yeah.
That was crazy. So was it 3 workouts? What was it?
I forget.
I think it was 3. Or no, it was a different. Every hour you were supposed to do
something.
I think it was more than 3, but I don't.
Yeah, it was
I don't
every
fully
hour
remember.
you're supposed to do like 3 sets of buys and tries.
I'm sure it's still on T-Nation.
I'm sure.
So I do find, we just were talking about this before getting on to record. Training splits to me simply mean like the training matrix we use in programs. Yep. So I have upper 1, lower 1, upper 2, lower 2. So what's the big factor that changes the split in terms of then becoming not just an upper, like an arms and shoulders or a chest and back? Is that what you're saying? It's the exercises and how much they're trained, like the saturation of it within the session?
I'm not sure. I missed your question.
Yeah. I think I know where you're going with that. It would be, so if it's an upper body session, we're going to try and hit as many movement patterns and many muscle groups of the upper body as possible. Whereas if it's a chest and back session, we're going to limit our exercise selection to the chest and back. So we're not going to be touching direct arm work or direct forearms and stuff like that there. Whereas an upper body, there's
it's always antagonist, right? We always do a press and a pull.
We do.
Yeah,
we do. Yes. You definitely don't have to, but we'll always do it that way. Whereas sometimes, like say you're doing a shoulders and arms day, sometimes it's a little more complicated because what are you going to pick for an antagonist to shoulders? So obviously if you do an overhead press as part of your shoulders, a very easy antagonist would be a chin up that's supinated, so you're going to hit the biceps, but it's not a pure arm. Okay. So it's just gets a little more complicated then.
Okay, so let's swing into training splits for a specific type of training. So what do you want to go into first?
I mean, like for hypertrophy, one that I really like, and it's the one that the 3 of us did in our hypertrophy macro in 2022 is so you assume a 3-week mesocycle, and what happens, and now because you guys know I don't like legs, maybe that's the reason why I like it so much, but basically what happens is the body is split into 4 sessions. So chest and back, quads, arms and shoulders, and posterior chain. And then week 1, you're doing chest and back, quads, arms and shoulders, posterior chain. And then Friday, you're doing chest and back again. So the same Monday session is repeated. You have Saturday and Sunday off. Week 2, it starts with quad. Then you have arms and shoulders. The Wednesday is off, or you do remedial stuff like forearm, neck, abs. Thursday, you have chest and back again. Friday, you have posterior chain. Saturday, Sunday off. And then week 3, now you have arms and shoulders. You have quads. You have chest and back. You have posterior chain, and finally arms and shoulders with the weekend off. So what's cool about this split is in a 3-week meso, what happens is the smaller muscle groups, which recovers a little bit quicker, are trained 4 times in 3 weeks, which is the chest and back and arms and shoulders. And the bigger muscles that take a little bit longer to recover, which is the quad and the posterior chain, are only trained 3 times within that time frame. So on a recovery perspective, it's kind of cool, but on a progress perspective, it's really effective because it allows you within a training year to push way more upper body sessions, but it's okay because you should be able to recover from them as opposed to, let's say, a deadlift session for posterior chain that's going to wreck you for at least a week. So that's one I really like for hypertrophy for these reasons.
Yeah, I was telling Steph this morning, like one I used to do before I was a trainer was arms and shoulders, lower body, off, chest and back, off, repeat. So it's a 5-day rotation, and got good results from it. Didn't mind it because it involved you training on the weekend. So when you're not a trainer, this can be good because the gyms are less busy and you get more use of equipment. Once I became a trainer and was spending every day of the week in the gym, the last thing I wanted to do was go back into the gym on the weekend. So that got ruled out for life.
But a lot of people, like Gen Pop, even like the athletes and stuff that train, like a lot of people just don't want to be in the gym on weekends.
I get it.
Yeah. So, and it's like a schedule is, if you have a client and then the schedule changes all the time, it just makes it really hard to manage your schedule. And
like
stuff.
I train a ton of pro athletes, like in the hundreds. I've only had one who could handle that split. Everybody else, it was always a no-go. And why? One of the reasons is during the off-season is when these pro athletes have time with friends and family. Yeah. So they don't want to be away from their friends and family on the weekend on top of it, while the kids are out of school or whatever it might be. So it's just not a very, it's great for bodybuilders because bodybuilders, that's their life. But for athletes, it really doesn't pan out.
Like the big reasons that we employ these splits is so we can dedicate more volume to each muscle group per training session, and then hopefully increase the exposures based on how the split orientated. But for a lot of people, it's not warranted. A lot of people don't train hard enough as it is to really need to push that extra volume in and need the additional recovery between the sessions. So most of them will get just as good results from upper lower splits.
Yeah, I agree.
Unless you're doing like really involving training methodologies like giant sets and tri-sets where now the volume is such that the damage will be big enough that you'll need that recovery time. Yeah. But for the average programs that we see online and everything, it really is not.
Well, and I think, we're talking about training splits, and that's one aspect of weight training. But what you just said, so many people don't train hard enough. Yep. So sometimes people overthink the training split where in the end they're just not performing in the gym, hitting the sessions hard enough to get results. So I think sometimes people complicate things like the training splits when that's not that's not the answer you're looking for. It's actually putting in the work.
Whereas, as Steph was saying, he got his best results from an upper lower split. I got my best results from an upper lower split.
That's what I've been doing when I got my results.
The consistency of it, and if you're looking to put on size, it's training really hard and eating a calorie surplus. Yeah. And you will put on size. You don't need all the fancy things.
But wasn't there a study too, where it showed that when you do antagonist, you potentiate the amount and the results, you get an actual. There's more benefit to doing the antagonist, so in the upper body, an upper body session versus doing just chest.
Yeah, so it's based off of the concept of agonist, contract, antagonist, relax. So the relaxation effect. So let's say you're working your biceps. Working your biceps will relax the tricep. Mm-hmm. So then when you go back to tricep, now you're going to have more activation and neural drive in the tricep. So you're training your tricep, and now your bicep is relaxing a little bit more, and on and on and on and on. So that's one of the reasons why we use the double station superset so much. But it's just the reality, though, is not everything is always a clear-cut agonist, antagonist. Mm-hmm. Like bis and tris is easy, but, inclined press, with the upper body, it gets a little trickier sometimes.
But it's typically a pressing versus a pulling.
Yeah.
So that's what
and even
to do.
At least at the elbow joint, we know that it's.
And most of the splits that we use are still set up that way. Mm-hmm. One split I've used in the past is push, pull legs, off, repeat. But I only ever used it with clients who obviously wanted 6-day a week training and trained in a busy commercial gym. Yeah, so they didn't need supersets, so
that's
they
true.
can get one piece of equipment.
And then just stay there.
Yeah, exactly. So it's about figuring out what's going to work with the client in their situation.
And I don't want to, it's not, maybe you, Alex, but it's none of our favorite, the full body. But I don't want to downplay the importance of it. I do feel that the full body has its place in a decent amount of scenarios. One, body composition type training where you're mostly trying to create some form of metabolic disturbance. So I think it's great for that. It allows you to also reduce the overall frequency of the training, so you have more room for other modes of training to help with your body composition. But I also think that for a lot of beginners, and like real beginners, especially like clients that are new to strength training, but also that have a very limited sports training background, which means their nervous system is not very effective. I think that for that clientele, full body sessions should be the core for at least 3 to 6 months, because they need their ability to recruit motor units is so low. Their ability to exert force is so low that there's no true dip in the recovery curve. So they're going to perform better by multiplying the exposures. And on top of it, and I know everybody always talks about being bored and all and on, but on a purely results perspective, to have one full body session that repeats 3 times a week is actually more effective for these clients, because you're not exposing them to like 36 new movements that they need to learn. Like they have let's say 8 movements on day 1. On Wednesday, they repeat the 8. On Friday, they repeat the 8. The week after, they repeat. So the learning curve is much faster than if you have like split squat on day 1, and then you don't reproduce that split squat until like 7 days later. They already have lost some of that learning. So I think it's really important. Like all that variation only becomes useful with the high, intermediate, or advanced training, to be quite honest.
So then when you're speaking, you're saying how full body is so useful with the beginners. Would you ever use full body with advanced clients?
Me personally, no.
Well,
I wouldn't.
In season trim.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
there's always going to be
with
exceptions.
athletes,
But like back to the full body once, the same session repeating. So exactly what I did with my underage. So by underage, I'm talking about under 15. So 13, 14, 15-year-olds. I started them out with the same session 3 days a week for the first 3 months. After 3 months, they get 2 upper body sessions and it rotates A, B, A, B, A, B. And then we pretty much did that for the first year. And by the time they went through that first year, then they're now technically proficient enough to, depending on their frequency, move to an upper-lower split or move to 3 separate full-body sessions. So it's a really easy way to slowly introduce and get people more efficient neurologically and better with their movement patterns. But I think people really rush that and try and be way too fancy too quickly.
Yeah, I agree. But then, like, just so our students, like people who have done our education, I don't want you guys to be confused by what I said with the never. Because, for example, with body comp, even if you're advanced, then I would still do a full body session.
So it depends on the goal. Like when it's strength, you're never going to use...
But that's where it gets tricky too, and it's hard to nuance this in online courses. But and this is just my point of view. And by the way, you guys watching us, everything that we say is only our opinions, right? So it doesn't mean we're right.
Educated opinions.
But to me, when I'm talking about a advanced program for body comp, I'm not necessarily talking about a body comp program for a advanced lifter per se. It's the advanced version for the people doing body comp. Because in my opinion, if you've been training for, let's say, 10 years, which makes you an advanced lifter and training for real, okay? Well, you shouldn't need to do a body comp macrocycle. You've been training for 10 years. If you're 30% body fat, the training is not what you need to do better. Your nutrition needs to be better. And at that point in time, you should be so strong and so well tuned with training that if you do full body 3 times a week with the volume required for body comp, you're going to crash and die real quick, especially if you make the mistake to combine this training with a caloric deficit. Yeah. So I just want to be clear with this. I'm not saying that there's no advanced approach, but it's advanced in the sense that, let's say in your first 2 years, you've had like 3 or 4 macrocycles dedicated to fat loss to fine tune your body comp. Well, in year 2, maybe your first macro would qualify as an advanced, but I'm not necessarily saying that you're a advanced lifter. Yeah. Okay, because a true advanced lifter that needs to lose body fat, I would still use upper, lower, but then I would manipulate the nutrition more.
I mean, I think you threw a lot of people off last year when I made such a drastic physique transformation, but my entire year was absolute strength and relative strength.
Yeah,
so that goes
like you're all of 2023. Like macro 1 was absolute strength, macro 2 was relative, macro 3 absolute strength, relative, and then you went from what, like 23 to 11.8% body fat or something like that?
In the year. We're looking at a year, yeah.
But at no point, you didn't even do cardio.
Yeah. Not last year. This year I did.
No, I know you did this year. But
last year I did 3 months.
We're talking about 2023.
Yeah.
Like you had zero cardio. It was only strength training.
And then nutrition.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't think it's ideal, but if someone needed a maintenance strength program, that would be another time you could use a full body split, and it'd just be very low on the volume front, and they'd just be them covering their bases. Yeah. But it's not something that we talk about often because we're not talking about maintenance often. We're always trying to improve.
Yeah. I was just going to say it's exactly what I did when I was traveling a lot, like where you just don't know what type of traveling. You don't know what gym you're going to have. You don't have, you know what equipment, and then when you're going to have the opportunity. So I did a lot of full body, but it wasn't like GBC. It was just full body. So I started with legs and then went to upper body.
Yeah, like the traveling part is, to me, it's the hardest thing ever. And like me, I struggle to train in other gyms. Like I never like them.
Steph is really set. He likes his comfort.
Even if it's technically a nice gym, like there's always something I don't like. So to me, the only way I can bear with like training on the road would be the most boring approach for anybody else. But I pick 1 or 2 exercises that are not busy, and I just go back and forth for the entire hour, and that's the way I do it. It's the only way I can cope with it.
Yeah.
So for training splits, you mentioned the whole in-season with athletes. So if we kind of want to go into, it's obviously probably sport dependent where they are in the season and everything regarding training splits for sports performance.
Yeah, so off season, it's most likely going to be more of a upper lower split. For probably the duration, like if you have an athlete that really doesn't recover well, you maybe bring in a body part split, but that's definitely not ideal.
Yeah.
Then once you get to pre-competition and in-season, you'll probably move to full body. Some sports will allow slightly more in-season weight room training, and then you can maybe do a upper lower full body if you're getting 3 sessions a week. So it is sport dependent at that stage, how young they are, how much time they're willing to spend in the gym, what their needs do. They need to get bigger. Like I know rugby is a big one that they do actually dedicate a lot of their weekly training to gym sessions, and they will maintain their strength and size and even put on size throughout the season. So they'll probably benefit from an upper lower full body sort of session split.
How many games do they play?
It's generally once a week, but I'm not sure the length of the season. And then there is international breaks, but I think it's even dependent on the league where you are in the world. It's not as straightforward as like the NFL. But whereas say baseball, or hockey, you are fighting for your life to get any gym sessions in. So it'll definitely be full body, and it'll be whenever you can fit it in.
Yeah, one of my friends is the strength coach for an NHL team. And like when I talk to him, like the key word is maintenance. Yep. Like he's basically doing his best to make sure that there's not a drop off in size and strength and power, because like oftentimes he's stuck training people on let's say on a Tuesday night after a game at 10:30 p.m. That's when he trains his people. They're already tired. It's late at night, but that's the only time he has. So the goal really is maintenance. And then you have like I trained this one MLB player who was just he was just a freak of strength, and he loved strength training. He was the exception to the rule. Like in season, during a Major League Baseball season of 162 games, basically they have 3 days off per month. He was training 6 days a week in season, but like he loved it. Like it was good for his mental. He felt like he played better if he had trained the morning. But we mitigated the recovery. So the split I used with him was actually chest and back, lower body, arms and shoulders, and this it would be like higher reps. And then on Thursday, chest and back again, lower body, arms and shoulders, but it would be lower reps. And then he would have Sunday off and repeat. And he did really, really well on this, but clearly exception to the rule. Usually in season, if you can get to 2 sessions, maybe 3 it's great.
Like one of the big mistakes I see people making in season, and this is obviously at a slightly lower level, like it's not generally in the professional ranks, is they think they're going to do all their training in season and actually progress in strength to get to their strongest come the end of the season. And while some people might be able to do this, generally to me, if you're at your strongest come the end of the season, you've wasted your off season. Yeah. You haven't trained hard enough in your off season to maximize where your potential actually could be. Whereas if you're taking it easy during the off season and just doing fuck all, to be honest, you maybe have the potential to be at your strongest come the end of the season, but it's definitely not ideal.
I know we're talking to, like you were mentioning, obviously a high-level athlete. We have a lot of students that work with youth athletes. So does it go back to using full body with them because you want to just get them moving better?
I mean, it could be like whenever I consult with coaches who deal with youth athlete, the big problem nowadays is they do a bazillion things. Yeah. So they're not just a baseball player, they're also a hockey player, a football player, a basketball player. So they're doing stuff all the time. So they don't really have a true off season. So if this is the case, I feel like full body is your best option because there's just not much you can do.
Yeah. Anytime I trained kids like that, it was, so say that 4 different sports and they're trained 3 at the same time, but they were still made to go to the gym by whatever sport it was mandatory. My biggest goal was to give them as much movement proficiency in the major lifts as possible. So whenever they actually did get a break and could train for real, they were in a position that they could train. I was never like, I'm going to bury these kids and try and make them better now because they're in the gym. No, like all you're going to do is make life worse for them. So if we can make them really, really efficient at the big movements, they're in such a better position to go and train once they got that appropriate opportunity.
Okay, so now we talked a little bit on hypertrophy, sports. Did we? I know we kind of talked about it because it's all of our favorite ones. Well, body comp, full body. But in terms of advanced strength splits, are you sticking to the upper and lower?
Overall, yes. But advanced, it really depends, like, because we need to qualify advanced. But like, I've trained people that are 240 pounds plus, that have a 500 plus squat, that have a 400 plus bench. So with these people, they're so strong, they're so big, they're recruiting so much mass when they're training, that I find that sometimes with them, even if the goal is strength, you might be better off with more of a split routine, where you do have a arms and shoulder day, for example, because, but I'm not necessarily saying I will have a chest and back. It might still be an upper body session in general, but I will add a third day where it's more remedial in nature. And when I say bis and tris, I'm not necessarily talking about close grip bench and dip and a close pronated grip pull up. I'm talking about single joint arm day, where it will be tricep extension, incline curls, lateral raise, neck extension, grip work, like stuff like that, simply to almost use this as a active recovery, but still stimulating motor units and muscles that they're not fully targeting that well with the big compound lifts.
Yeah, like with this type of clientele, if you want to stick to the upper lower split, you might have to just get more fancy with within the session or how you load them. So say you, like, their trim split has a squat on lower body 1 and a deadlift on lower body 2. The chances of them being able to lift heavy in both those lifts in the same week is pretty slim. So you're going to have to go on a heavy squat with a light deadlift for technique, for a slight variation that is going to limit their load, or some other variation just so they're not completely draining the same. It's obviously not the same motor pattern, but it's going to have a lot of the same muscles working. Yeah. So week 1, you're doing a heavy squat and a lighter deadlift, and then week 2, you could be doing a lighter squat and a heavy deadlift. So you're going to be playing around with loading that way. Bench press could be the same. It's upper body's rarely as badly taxed as the lower body, but it's also, you have so many different variations to play with for upper body and different implements.
Poric doesn't do that. He lifts heavy all the time.
Yes.
Like, every time I see him, I'm like, really?
But I don't categorize myself as that level strong.
I mean, Poric's 2023 lifting year was basically relative strength throughout.
Yeah.
Because even your one macro of absolute strength, it was like really high-end.
It was like 85, 86%.
Yeah. So, 23 was...
I get tired just watching him.
It's why we're bringing power in this year.
But even like, I was talking to Andre yesterday, Andre Benoit, so he's a colleague of ours. Alex and I worked with him in St. Louis. We worked with him with Poric and Group. And one approach that he uses that I think is smart and clever, because he was talking about when he works with power lifters, like just like me, like we both agree that we're not powerlifting experts. Because the thing about strength training, we're both strength coaches. We're both performance strength coaches, but for team sports. And the thing with strength training is never sport specific, unless you're doing Olympic weightlifting and powerlifting. And ironically, we both consider ourselves not experts at all in powerlifting or Olympic weightlifting, because these are sports that's so specific. But whenever he's approached to work with powerlifters, what he does successfully is he's like, okay, do you keep doing your powerlifting training? Doesn't matter if it's West Side or European style or whatever it is. But what he does is he provides the remedial only day that they do outside of it. So one workout might be like neck, forearms, grip, bis, tris. He notices that a lot of powerlifters, their knee caves in. So on lower body remedial, he might do some Peterson step up, might do some other step up variations, might do some unilateral hip thrust. Like like remedial stuff that these typical powerlifting programs don't do. And now because these people, they're still doing that training, but they're adding these remedial, it's not taxing on the recovery, but over the long run, it really helps rebalance any weaknesses they might have. So most of them actually improve their powerlifting scores just because of the added remedial. So a remedial dominant day might also be a good quote unquote active recovery day to add to more advanced trainings.
That's good.
I think this kind of goes into how we view active recovery, because a lot of people, like, we work with 12-week macro cycles, and then after a 12-week macro cycle, we can take a 1-week active recovery. But I know, for example, like Poric, you don't do well when you take that week out of the gym. We had clients in HB that we tried to lock out of the gym and mentally didn't do it, so we let them come in. So for you, what do you do for that week of active recovery?
So what I do depends on how I feel after my last macro and then what my last macro entailed. So if I have just done a hypertrophy-based macro, I'd probably do very, very, very remedial-based stuff, very like short of failure, and like just so far away from what I've just been doing that it's not a big deal. Now, if I'm coming off a strength macro, like I'm just coming off an absolute strength one now, next week, I will do higher reps, pump work, pretty much bodybuilding style for a week. Sometimes if I really beat up after a strength macro, I'll just do a week of modified strongman conditioning. So it's dependent, but as long as I'm in the gym and keeping that neural activity, I fare far better in my next macro cycle. If I take a week off completely, pretty much the first meso of my next macro is trying to get back to where I was neurologically anyway.
Yeah. I know for me, for active recovery, like it never really falls exactly where I'm going to take it, because we have trips or something with work. So I try to keep going with my training if I don't feel like I need that week of active recovery. And normally now I've been training long enough where I tell where it's like, okay, I need that week of active recovery. And then in the last few years, I've started doing Prolon, and then that's helped me huge, because when you do Prolon, the 5-day fast mimicking diet, you're not supposed to train. And I know you kind of made your own version because you're allergic to everything in Prolon. But that has been a huge success for me, because I drop so much inflammation. It gives my body a break, and I feel great going back to it. So active recovery to me is kind of just when I feel I really need it. I'm not as strict on taking it every 12 weeks. But you also recently, we've also discovered for my training that the intensification phases I get way more beat up on towards the end of a macro cycle. So now what we're playing with for me is 3-week accumulation phases and 2-week intensification phases.
So a macro would be 10 weeks, which it seems like, because in the past, like as soon as we get to week 11 or 12, we can see that everything becomes a huge grind, and little tweaks and aches are start to show up. So if we stop right before it, then you'll be better off in the long run. So because, like people hate to think that they're slow twitch, but people fail to realize that the majority of people are more slow twitch than fast twitch. And Kelsey is a little bit more slow twitch, so it can't.
It's a bad thing?
No, it's not a bad thing. Like, I love, like, when my boss in St. Louis, when I was first hired, Nelson, used to work with Charles Poliquin back in Phoenix in the late 90s, and they would often argue because Nelson's an ex-biathlete, so he has it's like kind of like a rep machine, and Charles is more of a pure fast twitch. And we'll always argue, fast twitch is better and slow twitch is better. And then, like, Charles was like, listen, I'm way stronger than you. If I punch you, my one punch is going to hurt you big time. And Nelson was like, okay, true. But I'm almost as strong as you. So if I hit you, it's still going to hurt. But the difference, I'll be able to hit you at that force for multiple blows. So I'm going to destroy you more. No, it's stupid, but it was just funny and true at the same time. So if you're slower twitch, but you can build strength, well, it's good because your ability to repeat that level of strength is greater. But you're a little bit more slow twitch, so it makes sense that you do a little bit better in accumulation phases, and the intensifications are a little bit more of a grind. So there's nothing wrong with it. You just need to use who you are to your advantage and then manipulate the periodization accordingly. But it doesn't mean that you can be powerful. Look at your training right now, right? Yeah.
So with the active recovery, so going back to active recovery, so do either of you have different takes on what you think people should do for active recovery?
I mean, it's really dependent on the person. Like Poric needs to do an active recovery. I'm good with taking a full week off. And I like to do it more when I'm on vacation and stuff. Usually if I'm still here, I'll just I'm good with intuitive training where I just kind of wander around the gym and I'm like, oh, maybe today I'm going to do this. But yeah, I think it's really just dependent on the person. Some people just mentally, they can't take that time away from the gym.
Yeah, personally, if the client can handle it, I prefer if they don't come to the gym at all. Yeah. They do, they walk, they play basketball, play tennis, whatever it might be, but I prefer they don't come to the gym to truly rest their joints, but also to get them hungrier for when they're back in the gym. But it doesn't work with everyone, but I feel like it's the best option if you can do it.
I had another topic I was going to bring up. And this is kind of one of those things that has been frustrating us because we see it a lot online, but it's obviously not what we believe. Every time we talk about something about strength training, it always becomes hypertrophy. So, and to us, strength training isn't only hypertrophy. That's not the only reason people are strength training. That's not the only benefit of strength training. So what do you think it is that's going on? Is it just simply that it's social media and hypertrophy? It's the showy ones. It's the building of the muscle. Or is it something where it's people are becoming misguided in the fact that there's far more nuances to strength training and why we strength train?
I mean, I don't know the whys to all the questions you're asking, but it's definitely a trend that we've seen in the last couple of years somehow. Hypertrophy is the only thing relevant to training. I don't get it.
If you strength train, no matter what, you're building muscle. So you don't have to specifically always focus on hypertrophy type of training.
Yes, like what you always say, what is the side effect of strength training?
Hypertrophy.
And strength.
And strength.
So it doesn't always have to be what is the most specific way to build hypertrophy. The outcome of strength training overall is going to be strength and hypertrophy. So we don't always have to say this is the best way to get hypertrophy. No, if it's got a good strength output and good strength outcome, long term, it's going to help you build hypertrophy.
Yeah, no, but it's I'll give the example because it exemplifies well what's been bothering us. So yesterday, our social media post, it's a short clip of the previous podcast when I'm asked, what is one piece of equipment that you would want to have in your gym if you're opening up a gym? And I say a lying leg curl because to me, it's the most versatile of the leg curl machines. It's great for many reasons. It's easy for the new client and on and on. And then one of the comments was, well, I thought I saw a study that said that the seated leg curl is better for hypertrophy. Yes. But the question that was asked to me was not, what is the best leg curl for hypertrophy? Who cares? That was not my question. The question was what piece of equipment would you buy if you're opening up a small gym? I would buy a lying leg curl because way less stressful for the newbie to get on because you can flex your knee while not being in a fully stretched position because a lot of gen pops, if they're tight and inflamed and you ask them to start a concentric rep from that overly stretched position, they hurt themselves, they tear muscles, tweak muscles. It's a lot easier to get into a lying leg curl. It's way easier to do unilateral work in a lying leg curl. So to me, it's just a more versatile piece. But yeah, I was not debating the effect of training in the lengthened position for hypertrophy. But sometimes people, they lack context. But no matter what the context is, it's always associated to hypertrophy. Yeah. I don't understand why that's a thing. Who cares? I mean, as if you're not going to build you're going to build like 7% more hypertrophy over 9 weeks with a.
It's probably not even that much. I wonder.
But it depends. Yeah. Like some is significant, but. I mean, it's just funny. That was not what I was talking about, but that's what people bring. And that's just one example, but we deal with those types of assumption all the time.
But I wonder if it's like there's so many people competing nowadays, right? Compared to like when I was competing in the late 90s, you know, it was only like the fringe people. Like there weren't that many people in the weight training in the gym and stuff. Now it's like everybody wants to compete. So that's all they're thinking about is hypertrophy.
Yeah, maybe it's social media culture. Like, you know, it's all about the show and
yeah, probably.
It's probably what the algorithm feeds us to. Like,
it's just a hard one because while to us strength training is a lot more. Like for me, strength training is as much an experiment to see if I can try things and find out if they work. So I know if the scientific backing behind them, all right, all this logically makes sense, but if I go and do this, will I still get the result I think I'm going to get? So like to me, half the training I do is based on that. Sometimes it's purely, okay, I want to get as strong as possible in this lift. But other times, like this last 8 weeks was 100%. I want to manipulate variables in a way I haven't done before to see if I still get the outcome I want. And people, especially trainers, like you should definitely be taking opportunity in your own training to try out different variations and different methods that you've never done before. Like you're only going to know if they work truly or how you should be loading your clients and implementing with your clients if you've done it yourself first.
Yeah, and sticking to it for a while because like that goes to so many people program hopping all the time. Yeah. So it's like, yes, play around with things, but it takes work and consistency and sticking to it to actually be able to know if it's working or not.
Yeah. But it's funny, if you look at people who strength train for just strength training, they're usually the biggest ones. Like the ones who do the hypertrophy training are usually like they're trying to get, like if they just stuck to it, like you were saying, they would get that benefit of the hypertrophy. But because they jump around different hypertrophy type of programs, they're not getting anywhere.
Well, it's because people are too impatient because they're not getting the results they should have because they're not training the way they should be training with the intent that they should have. Because I remember like in my late teens and early 20s, I was training all the time. I would never skip training. But there was so many facets of the whole strength training experience that I was not optimizing that I didn't get results. First of all, my nutrition was complete crap. I would be one of those 1 to 2 meal a day, but 6,000 calories, and most of these calories came from juice.
Juice.
Okay, I didn't know juice could make me fat because I'm drinking, I'm not eating. So I didn't make
still a teenager. Don't worry.
Yeah, this isn't when he was in his 20s.
And but then like I'm training, right, and I'm doing like the programs from Arnold Schwarzenegger's Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding, and it's those crazy like weeder spiked workouts that are 2.5 hours, 6 days a week. So the only way I could really go through these workouts by half-assing everything, but I don't know, right? So now it's not working. I'm not growing, so I think it's the training. So now I read Heavy Duty 2 by Mike Menzer. Ooh, I'm going to get jacked if I train once every 14 days for one set. Like I do this. The most boring program I've ever done in my life. So it didn't last because I'm like, fine, I'm not training. Yeah. So then you switch to something else, and then you switch to something else. And you're trying to, because in your head, like there is this secret potion. There is this thing somewhere. I just need to find it. People are not telling me. So
Hard
you keep looking, you keep trying, you keep doing education, trying to figure out, only to realize eventually that once I started training for real with basic stuff, but for real, and I understood loading, and I would train myself with full intent, and I would eat properly. Now, oh, I'm getting stronger, I'm getting bigger. Oh, now it's working.
Yeah.
So now I didn't feel the need to switch everything up all the time, because I knew that now I was on the right path. But I could have been on that right path 10 years prior, but I was just not executing it properly. So get strong. But it's the essence. Like, that's how it should have been. Like, get strong as much as you can with the basic stuff. And once you build a certain base of strength and mass, then you can be cuter and fancier with other modalities. But to go to extreme, like isometric this and that, and a triple drop set pump by isotonic,
Squeezing.
the Japanese thing there, occlusion training.
I think Kyatsu is.
It's like you're not even there yet. You can't even bench press properly.
Yeah.
Don't skip steps.
Like, your bench press all over the place. You're not even tightening up nothing, and now you want to add this because you think that's going to bring you from 152 pounds to 190. I mean, come on, like you.
Yeah, adding 60 pounds to your bench press will do that.
Yeah,
yeah. Like, you're far safer off just focusing on the basics. Get strong, because like not everyone.
But Poric, the research has shown that bench press is not the best for pec hypertrophy.
But it's going to also grow our triceps and our front delts. Yeah, so like, if people, like, not everyone's going to be super strong. Not everyone's got the potential to have a 4 times body weight squat and a 2 times body weight bench press, but everyone can get stronger.
Yeah.
So get yourself to a base level of strength before getting too concerned.
The fancy stuff.
Yep.
Train smart, train hard.
Train kilo.
Ooh. Like, subscribe, keep on listening to us. Thanks for tuning in, fam.